It's first down for the Rebels. Manning to the left, cocks his arm. He throws the home run. He's open at the 15, to the 10, to the 5, out of bounds on the 3-yard line. Floyd Frank catching the ball. Manning calls his signals with 3rd and 10, drops back to the left, sets himself, reverses field, decides to run it. He's hit, breaks the tackle, goes to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, beautiful run.
Welcome to Schaap One-on-One, with the man who finished 4th in the Heisman Trophy voting one year, 3rd in the Heisman voting the next year, and whose son finished 2nd in the Heisman voting 28 years later. The man who endured 13 seasons in the National Football League and never played on a winning team. The former quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, Houston Oilers, and Minnesota Vikings, and the executive director of the Manning Passing Academy, Archie Manning. Archie, welcome to Victory Yard. And of course, the question is obvious. Who is better, you or Peyton, at golf?
At golf, the answer is obvious there. I'm better than him at golf, but he's coming pretty fast.
He's coming fast on the golf course.
Yeah, well, he's so long that you know, you hit it past someone 75 or 100 yards every time. If finally they'll beat you, but that's about the only thing I can still beat him at.
Well, on football, is he coming fast too?
Yeah, at a young age, he's worked hard, and I didn't know he could be that good a player this quick.
Well, do you realize how good a player you were? I mean, how frustrating was it to come that close to winning the Heisman 2 years in a row?
Oh, that was, you know, in those days, Dick, I didn't think too much about the Heisman. It was kind of, you know, they didn't bring people up back then or anything. You just named a winner, and it was kind of a matter of fact. You know, I remember maybe the first year it was like, you know, the next, oh, by the way, you came in 4th in the high. Oh, okay.
And was that the year that Plunkett and Theismann were
That had
ahead?
been my junior year. I believe Steve Owens might have won the Heisman that year. But the next year, the next year there was a lot of attention throughout the year with Jim and myself and Joe Theismann.
So those two both went on to win Super Bowls. Or to play.
Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah,
they sure did.
It wasn't a bad league. Was it more frustrating when Peyton didn't win it?
For a lot of people, I just felt like as a parent, let's don't get wrapped up in this. And he was going to win a lot of awards. He'd had a wonderful career. I knew the way, kind of the way it was coming down, that he probably was not going to win. But people in Tennessee really got. I mean, you know, they'd never. I think they'd had 3 or 4 people that had finished 2nd, and you know, they strongly felt like Peyton's career merited winning a Heisman Trophy. I told my wife and our family, you know, let's don't get pumped up for this thing, and then it'd be a letdown. And Peyton didn't either. He wanted to be over with. He got real tired of the talk about it, the attention, I don't think the ceremony and all the things that went on with that was a lot of fun for him. But like I said, so much was going on in his life at that time, and it was a fun time for him, and he dealt with it. I thought he dealt with it real well.
I think there were a lot of us among the group who voted for Charles Woodson who you know, were so struck by the opportunity to vote for a defensive player who for years and years had looked for a defensive player.
Absolutely. And I understood that. Peyton understood that. Mm-hmm. And he also knew what a great player Charles, what a great athlete Charles was. And you know, I can remember Hugh Green, who was from my home state of Mississippi. And I don't remember who won the Heisman his year, but Hugh Green could have been a Heisman.
I voted for him. I remember that.
He was an outstanding player there at Pittsburgh, and I certainly understood and knew that people were looking for a defensive player. And also, you know, and a lot of people around the country, there'd been a good guy, good college quarterback from a great Southern school who'd won the Heisman the year before, in Danny Werfel. And so here we go. The next year we got another Southern school, another pretty good guy, pretty good quarterback from a Southern school, and some people say, you know, let's do something different here.
I think Peyton has gone on to a slightly better career than Danny Werfel, but we'll see what. But your timing was terrible. If you had been 1 year later, you would have gone up against Pat Sullivan and Ed Marinaro. And you would have won that one. It would have been no competition.
Pat was a junior in the Southeastern Conference, of course, my senior year, and I knew he was going to be a strong candidate. I remember, though, I was a rookie in the NFL watching that, and that one was a You know, the Marinero camp was a little upset that year with the Heisman and so forth.
I was standing at NBC when the two of them came in to do the Bob Hope special, the All-American team, and by that time it had been announced that Sullivan had beaten Marinaro by 3 or 4 votes, whatever. And I had gone to the same school as Eddie.
Yeah.
And I said, Eddie, why don't you hit him? And we'll get it on camera, you know. And Marinaro was almost crazy enough to do it at the time, but they got through it. We will take the usual break, and then we'll return to one-on-one with the senior of the passing Mannings, Archie Manning.
With the first pick in the draft, the Indianapolis Colts select quarterback, University of Tennessee, Peyton Manning.
Welcome once again to Victory Yard and to one-on-one with a man who spent a brilliant pro career on mediocre teams, Archie Manning. When you came out of college and you went to New Orleans, it was a brand new organization. Did you think that, you know, that soon you'd be on a winning team?
Oh yeah, you're always optimistic. I came there in their 5th year, but it was a start over. They kind of went the veteran. They took all the expansion players in the early days. Remember, they had Jimmy Taylor and Paul Horning and Doug
Paul
Atkins.
never played, but
No.
Jimmy did. Yeah.
But then they had changed coaches. Tom Fears had been fired, and so it was kind of a start over again. And I was of course from Ole Miss and close by and drafted in the 1st round, and they were going to build things. So we were always developed good sanguine feelings that we're building something, we're going to get a little better. And when you win, if you didn't win 2 or 3 one year, but you win 5 or 6 the next year, you think you're getting better and you're building. In those days, that's what you did in football. You built, and they talked about 5-year building. You don't hear those anymore, 5-year building programs.
It's overnight.
But then we would always get to that 2.5-year mark or 3 and go back down again, and you fire the coach, then you start over again. So
You had coach after coach after
yeah,
coach.
we just kept, and it was just one big constant thing. You know, you change the coach, new assistants, new system, so get excited, start over, work your way up again.
I mean, it's probably not the distinction you would like, but you probably had the best career ever for someone who never played on a wing. You had 17 games in which you threw for 350 or more yards, and you only won 3 of those 17 games.
Well, that's probably about the right percentage back in those days anyway. If you throw for that many yards, you're playing catch up and you lose. It's because you have to throw so much. Now, it probably, you always look for something good. I think it enabled me to learn the game pretty quick. My system, when I came out of college, I didn't know a lot about the drop back passing game. I was a sprint out passer and I hadn't been taught a lot about these things of reading defenses. So I really had to work and study at that. And the fact that we weren't very good and we were behind and I got to pass a lot helped me to see all these things, start recognizing things, and learn the game pretty good. But still, but you're getting beat up and sacked a lot along the way, and then the atmosphere's not good with losing, and football's not much fun when you're getting beat up and when you lose it. I can assure you that.
What was the best game that you think you played as a professional?
Well, I always kind of hated to say this because a couple of the biggest wins we probably had was in my rookie year, and you know, I hate to think you did something in your rookie year and it never got much better. I mean, I felt like I became a lot better player, but my first game I ever played, you know, rookies started against the Los Angeles Rams, who were real good in those days. The old fearsome foursome of Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen and those guys, Roman Gable, the quarterback. And we upset them in New Orleans on opening day, 1971. I score 3 seconds to go, score a touchdown the last play of the game. It's a pretty good way to start a career, just never got a lot better. I think 3 or 4 weeks later we upset the Cowboys, who won the Super Bowl that year. So, you know, it showed you, that's a good thing about pro ball. Those things can always happen. We just never had any consistency. In the late 70s, Dick, I really had some good people to play with offensively. We were very productive on offense, and I had guys like Wes Chandler and Chuck Muncie and Tony Galbraith, and we could move the ball. We couldn't stop anybody. We couldn't outscore. We had to outscore people a lot, and had some mediocre seasons, but never any playoff games or anything like that.
Hank Stram said something wonderful about you. He said you were a franchise player without a franchise.
Well, you know, Hank was one of those many coaches you talked about, and he came to the Saints in 1976, and I was really excited about it. Hank was an innovator, and you remember
And he had
all
won
the
a
things.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, he'd won a Super Bowl in Kansas City, and now he was coming to New Orleans, and all those things. He'd really done some innovative things offensively in those days in Kansas City. Now Lenny was getting a little older and didn't move around as well, but you know, they had stacked tight ends in the backfield and doing a lot of things, and so he felt like we could. The Ole Miss staff used to go up, and he had seen me play in college and felt like we could do a lot of things. And I missed his first year. I had 2 operations on my throwing arm, and the second year he got fired. And so I didn't get to. It was one of my real regrets in pro ball that I didn't get to play longer for Hank, because I really felt like we could have done some good things offensively.
You went to Houston after New Orleans, and they were down at that time. And then you hit Minnesota in one of its rare down years.
Yeah, it was, you know, Bum came over to coach in New Orleans, and I played for him in his first year. And I liked Bum, but I didn't really want to play in Bum's system. We'd been throwing the ball all over the place, and you know, we drafted George Rogers, so who was a lot like Earl Campbell, so I knew what the offense was going to be like. But I said, oh, that's okay if we win. I'm at a point. I want to win some games. But Bum didn't really. He didn't really want me to be his quarterback, so he traded me to Houston, and he'd left, and things were awful in Houston. I mean, they were killing Earl on first and second down, killing me on third. And, I mean, it was a team that Bum had done a great job with and built up to a championship level, if you remember. But now it'd kind of been mortgaged, and it was going down. And I saw Bum when I went back home in the offseason one time. I said, Bum, he knew how bad things were over at Houston. I told him, I said, you know, I'm a big boy. I knew I could be traded, and I forgive you for trading me, but I'll never forgive you for trading me to Houston, because he knew it was bad. Then I go to Minnesota, which I had played for Bud Grant in a Pro Bowl, and his whole coaching staff. Tommy Kramer blows out his knee. I think this is 1983. And Tommy blows out his knee early in the season. I'm starting for the Oilers, but the Oilers kind of knew they were fixing to have to redo this team. So Bud traded for me, and gosh, you know, now this is really my break. Late in my career, and everybody wanted to play for Bud Grant late in their career. Sure. Veterans delight. Guy had been to Super Bowls and good team, and I get up there, and he says, we got a real complicated system here. It's going to take you a couple of weeks to learn it, but get ready because you're going to play. And doggone if I didn't get sick. I had a thyroid problem, and I just tried to get over it and couldn't, and so really didn't play. Go back the next year, get well, and go back. Bud Grant quits.
There's something about you that chases coaches away.
I had a good friend in Minnesota called me. He says, you know, Archie, he said, I've seen you run off a lot of coaches, but I didn't think you could run off Bud Grant.
That was an institution.
Yeah.
We're going to pause once more, then we'll continue one-on-one with Archie Manning of Ole Miss and Old New Orleans.
4th down and about a half a yard to go. They have the pro set now with 2 flankers, one to the right and one to the left, and Manning is going to keep it. He's running to the right, cuts back at the 15. He's on his feet at the 10, 5, touchdown, Mississippi. Archie Super Manning, 17 and a half yards, and the Ole Miss Rebel fans are going wild in New Orleans.
Where's that number 18 for the big band red and blue? Rootin' toot my quarterback, my friends, that's Archie.
Welcome back to Victory Yard and to One-on-One with Archie Manning, the quarterback for the last University of Mississippi team to be ranked among the top 10 in the country, the 1969 Rebels. Archie, before that season began, Steve Kiner, who was then playing for Tennessee, was supposedly asked about Ole Miss and supposedly said, Archie who? Now, I know you and he have had conversations since then. Does he still deny having said it?
Well, yeah, he does. It's been so long ago. We've both been hitting the head a lot. I don't think we can recall. I've seen Steve.
And you never said Steve who?
No, he's a good player though. Tennessee had good players, probably the best linebackers in the country. You know, reflect on all that. It was kind of crazy. I mean, you know, Archie who, and then these guys down there write a song about it, and people are wearing buttons and everything. But I guess it did make it fun. I was just kind of swept along with it, but my teammates seemed to have fun with it, and the people, and it's hard to believe it's been that long ago.
Steve Kerner did admit that he said that Ole Miss didn't measure up to Tennessee or to Alabama.
Well, he had reason to say that. You know, I played in 1969, no, in 1968, I was a sophomore, and I'd had a big game. We'd had a big game in LSU, and I'd won a nice award like National Back of the Week as a sophomore, and thrown for a lot of yards. And we go to Tennessee the next week, and I played the worst football game I've ever played all my life, Dick. I threw 6 interceptions, and it wasn't any tips or anything. It was just 6 stinky passes, and it was a horrible game. As a matter of fact, everybody knows, or it's been chronicled, you know, how much Peyton watches film and everything. When he went to Tennessee, he got that film out, and he watched it, and he transferred it over. It was, you know, 16 millimeter. He transferred it over to VHS, and he sent it to me.
For Father's Day?
Well, no, he just put a note on it. He said, "Dad, you were horrible." And I mean, I was a terrible, you know, we got behind. I was a terrible mechanical quarterback in college. I mean, I was a sprint out. If I had to drop back, I didn't know what I was doing, how to do it.
And Tennessee beat you, what was it, 38-0?
They beat us 31-0 that year. So then the next year we're picked to win the conference. In Steve's interview, he had reason to think I wasn't very good, but Coach Vaught seemed to like to use those comments, and we beat them 38-0 the next year. It kind of ruined their season. They were headed to the Orange Bowl and kind of ruined their season.
And you started slowly that season and ended up 8th in the country and going to the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, we lost 3. We lost 2 one-point games early in the year, and then lost to a good Houston team, and then finished real strong. I think we beat Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee, all in Jackson, Mississippi. They were all ranked 3rd in the country when we beat them. So we go to the Sugar Bowl with a 7-3 record.
And to play Arkansas.
And play a good Arkansas team.
And to beat Arkansas there. Yeah. One game that you lost to Alabama, 33-32, has got to be a game that you had 540 yards, I believe, in that game, 430-something passing and 100-something running. I mean, did anybody else get to touch the ball?
Well, you know, and we weren't a real passing. That was kind of out of character for us to have that. I mean, a lot of my games, I look back and, you know, I have 120 yards passing and maybe 80 rushing or things like that. But Alabama they weren't as good defensively back then and evidently we weren't either. And it was just a game up and down the field and back and forth. It was on TV. It was the first time I think they did a night game on TV, and it was a great game for fans to watch. But it wasn't much defense. Coach Vaught and Coach Bryant weren't real proud of being defensive coaches as they were. It was a hard game to lose. We had, I think, close to 750 yards as an offense, and we got beat. And it also made us 0-2 in the Southeastern Conference that we were picked to win.
We're going to pause once again, and we'll return to one-on-one with Archie Manning of the Manning Passing Academy. Welcome once more to Victory Yard and to one-on-one with Archie Manning, father of 3 talented football players and husband of a former Ole Miss homecoming queen. And if you've ever been to Oxford, Mississippi, you know that's a tough competition. Archie, you have the all-American family, children, beautiful wife, but it hasn't, you know, people think of you as having an idyllic life. But it hasn't always been that easy. Your father committed suicide when you were playing football at the University of Mississippi. What impact did that have on you and on your sons?
Well, it makes a 19, 20-year-old grow up real fast when that happens. I have a wonderful mother and sister at the time who was just 2 years older than me, and so all of a sudden now my father's gone, and you know, you just feel some instant responsibility that I felt like I probably thought I was a mature 20-year-old and going into my sophomore year in college, but I wasn't, and I didn't know responsibility. But of course, it made us extremely close. Had a lot of wonderful people who cared about us. Coach Vaught and a coaching staff at Ole Miss, who almost every single one of those guys at some point, you know, wanted to fill that role as my father, if he could. But of course, my concern was taking care of my mother and sister. So we dealt with it and continued to. My immediate thoughts, you know, I told my mother, I said, you know, I don't have to go back to school. I don't have to play college football if I need to take care of things. But, you know, he said, we'll make it. Obviously, she wanted me to go to school and keep playing football. So I always thought about my dad a lot as I played football, because we had a lot of success after that, and he would have been very proud, and because he was a real he really stayed back a lot, and he'd never be braggadocious about any accomplishments I had in sports. He was so proud when these Ole Miss coaches showed up in Drew, our little town, and went to the coffee shop and had coffee and everything. But he wasn't braggadocious about it at all. So, you know, when I played ball and as we went along, I thought about him, and you know, I missed him. And then, as I always said, when I got into pro ball, I really missed him then, because it would have been fun to take him places. You know, and I've seen this now as young professional players in some event or a golf tournament or a function, you know, where you take your parents or you take your dad somewhere. I think it impacted me later when I did have my own children, just that no one was ever going to accuse me of not spending time with my children. And I was in a profession where I could do that. Football is a wonderful profession to get to know your children and be able to do things with them.
As I said before, I think the genes are pretty good. We'll take another break, then resume our conversation one-on-one with Archie Manning.
Well, 18's always been a special number to our family. Of course, my dad wore it at Ole Miss. That's what he wanted, coming out to play for the Saints, but they didn't have it. My brother Cooper wore it when he was in high school. Of course, he was injured, and he's always been an inspiration to me. And I'm not a real picky guy. I'm not going to go to a team just because of a certain number, but the Colts had it available, and I'm looking forward to wearing it.
Welcome once again to Schaap One-on-One with Archie Manning, whose son also plays football. Archie, a couple of years ago, you gave up your broadcasting career so that you could spend more time, you know, with your son, or the main part of your broadcasting career. Now you and your sons have the Manning Passing Academy. Tell me about the academy.
Well, it's something I just flat copied from Bobby Bowden, because my kids the Bowdens had a camp with his sons, and my kids went to it, Peyton went to it, and Bobby told me, he said, I love that camp because it guarantees me I'm going to spend a week every summer with my kids as they get older, and so it was just we felt like a place for it in South Louisiana, and we started, and we have had so much fun with it. We have high school quarterbacks and receivers who come, and we spend, it's really just 3 days. But of course, Peyton's there full time, my other sons are there. We have high school coaches, college coaches, pros, and college players. I think that's really what makes it. These high school players love to be around the college players, and we're going to teach them and we're going to work them, but we're going to have fun. And,
sounds to me like you're going to turn it into Western Pennsylvania,
well,
like that used to be. Archie, thanks for visiting us here in Victory Garden, sharing your thoughts and your memories on Schaap One-on-One. Thanks, too, to our viewers, who we hope will continue watching ESPN Classic.